feeling different, being weird, that's not a weakness, it's a superpower. Let's get real. Not everyone gets the message. Some people struggle to find their place, especially those who were diagnosed as neurodivergent. To feel like they belong, they really need some encouragement. And that's a problem we are going to address today, and we are going to tackle the encouragement, huge positivity hacks. And welcome to PhD with Woman on It, Hack the Future. My name is Beata Young, and today's PhD positivity hack delivered guest will be Nina Ma. Topic: the power of neurodiversity in tech. Why different brains matter. Episode 154 starts here. Let me remind you, this is a grassroots community that focuses on women on IT, an inclusive forum of women in technology, startups, and female leaders who are supported by men as well. And I bring heart to that hustle because empathy is my motto. And empathy is critical when you are building the resilience that everybody needs, not just these people with a diagnosis of being neurodivergent. Because different brains matter. But first, let's go through things that's been happening in the world of technology and our community. Congratulations to our former guest, Elaine Montilla, for winning the award ISG Woman in Digital Women's Advocate. Your achievement is truly well deserved. For all our techie girls and women and people who want to tap into the world of technology, join Chic & Code headquarters this October till the 3rd of October as they exhibit Karen Brady's Women in Business and Tech at Excel in London. I hope, Nina, you're going to attend. You can register. We're going to give you a link in the chat. And finally, congratulations to our former PhD guest, Emily Cherkin, on sharing such valuable insights on parenting, edtech, and binary options. Check out her thoughts on Nancy Bailey's educational blog. It's a must read. Now, let's go back to our topic, the power of neurodiversity in tech, why different brains matter. Can understanding neurodiversity be the key to unlocking your tech team's full potential? What if embracing different cognitive styles could spark groundbreaking innovations and boost team success? Join us for this live discussion, and this episode we will dive into different topics with some stories that Nina is capable of sharing. Nina is a trailblazer who blends cognitive science expertise with a passion for fostering inclusivity in the tech environment. In this live stream, you will discover common stereotypes about and misconceptions about neurodiversity. You will explore strategies for challenging these stereotypes and what challenges do neurodiverse individuals face in tech. So, Nina, let's start with the basic question. Where in the world are you joining us from today?
I am currently joining from London, actually. So yeah, in the UK.
In the UK, beautiful, I hope sunny London, but we met in the beautiful sunny location in Berlin during Google I/O Tech event. And actually we resonated over the fact that diversity is so important during the Women Tech Makers Ambassador meeting in Berlin. So your overview insights about diversity were very inspiring, and we had a chat even during our commuting to hotels, and yes. We talked about the fact that you're for a very young lady, because you're Forbes would define as under 30. You already changed careers in big companies, and you have got some very insightful things you could share. So we are all wired differently. Culture, upbringing, experiences, they all shape us who we are. talking about culture, tell us, where were you brought up and what was your experience? How did it shape you?
Yeah, definitely. So I was born and grew up in Beijing, China. So it's the capital city. So it's really, really massive. I think when now I live in London, people are like, wow, that must be so busy. I think, yeah, growing up, I was in an even bigger and busier city. So yeah, and I moved to the UK when I was 17. But I think before I was 17, before I became an adult, I was very much shaped by my upbringing in China, by the culture. And yeah, so I think it's definitely a massive change moving to Europe, moving to the UK especially. But I think I definitely still carry a lot of Chineseness within me, because I think that's where my root is and what I sort of feel close and I sort of see as home.
Nina, I've got to tell you a story about my first visit to London. The very first time I landed in UK, it was 14th of February. And it was a start of Chinese New Year in London. So it was out of this world experience, because one thing has to be said, London is so welcoming in terms of divergent people. So it is much easier to mold into this culturally vibrant atmosphere. However, we know that there are some things that really transpires. Like, it didn't transpire to me. It was like a no-brainer when I first got my contract in London. I had to read about a pager about how to be inclusive, how to not to have any observations, and so on and so on. And it really sounded like it's so weird. Why do you need one pager on company policy? And now I get it, because if you land from a different place and enter this world of diversity, you need to understand the culture better, and also you need to embrace the culture that you're sharing with others. So talking about creating spaces where everyone feels safe to be themselves. Tell us, did you feel safe when you came to London at the age of 17?
Yeah, definitely. I think when I first came to the UK, I was super excited. I think at that age, I really didn't know what it meant to be like sort of, I wasn't anxious or nervous at all. I think I was too young to feel any type of negativity. I think I was just super excited, and that was the overwhelming feeling that I had to be coming to the UK. And I think I have always been open-minded. I would say growing up, I always was super, even as a kid, I was super sort of curious about the world outside. And I think when I was 13, I had the opportunity to go on a school trip to the US. And that was my first time leaving China. And I think I remember coming back from the school trip, and I told my parents, I was like, yes, I think I'm going to study abroad, like for university. And my parents were super supportive of that. So I think I always knew that like this was like, my destination. I was going to, like explore the world outside. So yeah, I was definitely super excited. And coming to the UK as well, like you said, is such a diverse and international country, and especially London as a city. So I think when I was at university, I actually studied in Birmingham, which is not as international as London, but it was still very, very diverse. And I made friends with people from all over the world. I think I went out of my way, stepped out of my comfort zone to not just hang out with other sort of Chinese people, where perhaps it was the easiest thing to do. I purposefully and intentionally tried to, mingle and make friends with different people. And I think that definitely paid off, because now I'm like going to my friends' weddings, like friends from uni, going to their weddings, etc. And I think it was such a life-changing experience, and it was incredibly humbling to learn about, other people's culture and meet so many people from so many different countries, different continents, etc. So, yeah.
Fantastic. We have a great supporter from Dr. Tony Okafor.
Yes.
There we go. Lovely to hear from you. Hopefully you will have some questions to Nina. If not, having your participation in today's discussion is definitely helpful, and it really excites us, because Nina, you said when you first landed in London, you were very excited. It sounds almost like you're no longer excited, are you?
I'm still really excited. I think London is one of those cities that you'll never get bored of. There's just always something to do, always something happening. I definitely say it's such a unique city in the world. I don't think there's any other city in the world like London. I think it's, the one and only, so international and just so much fun and always something happening. So, yeah.
But let's go back to neurodiversity. Mm-hmm. Nina, why did you choose this topic? Why are you passionate about it?
Mm-hmm. I think for me, growing up, especially growing up in China, I think linking back to what we talked about before, I always felt like there's, something going on up here that I couldn't really understand. I think in a lot of cultures, especially back when I was young, like when I was a child and when I was a teenager, etc., and especially in China as well, neurodiversity is not really a thing. People don't really recognize it. Not just neurodiversity, I think sort of psychology or like mental health in general is not really seen as something real or something that matters or something that is serious. So yeah, I think growing up, like I've obviously heard of like some of the neurodivergent conditions such as autism or ADHD, dyslexia, etc. But I had no real understanding of them, just like everybody else around me. And I think the impression and the very false impression that people had for like at least when I was growing up in China was that these conditions are it basically means that you're like, sorry for the language, but like you're dumb or something. And that's simply not true now that I know. But growing up, that was the impression that I was given. And I think there was just a lot of stigma around neurodiversity. And but I always felt like something is going on in my brain that is not necessarily usual or normal. So that's why when I was choosing what to study at university, I actually studied psychology. I chose it at the time, I think, was really because I wanted to understand myself. I wasn't really thinking about, how is this degree going to help me with my future career? I think I wasn't really thinking about becoming a psychologist. For me, it was all about understanding myself, understanding my brain, understanding the way I think and I function. And through, doing my degree for 3 years, I definitely figured out, like, learned about neurodiversity and now I understand myself a lot more. And that's when I realized I think I am neurodivergent. I think that's basically how I sort of decided that I should go for sort of diagnosis. So I think some of you guys might know that the diagnosis in the UK through the NHS especially is incredibly lengthy, and the wait time is really, really long. So I was super lucky. I think I waited for a year to get my diagnosis for ADHD. And when I got my diagnosis for ADHD, formally, I was also told, like informally, that I'm mildly autistic as well, but I've never been formally diagnosed for autism. But yeah, that's my journey, sort of figuring out myself that I am neurodivergent, basically. I'm not sure if it's me, but I can't hear you.
See, I'm a
Yes, I can hear you now. Yes.
It's good. Sorry about that. I was just typing and looking for people, famous people who are defined as neurodivergent. So, for example, Anthony Hopkins, Academy Award-winning actor known for roles in The Silence of the Lamb, is autism spectrum disorder defined. And now Emma Watson has got ADHD, Justin Timberlake, ADHD, Paris Hilton. Well, doesn't surprise. Dyslexia is defined in Richard Branson's, Steven Spielberg, Whoopi Goldberg, Albert Einstein, Tourette syndrome, David Beckham, Billie Eilish, and the list goes on and on. So definitely it's something to embrace and it can become your strength. How did you find strength in knowing your symptoms?
Yeah, definitely. I think for me, I know a lot of people feel like maybe they don't need a diagnosis, but I think for me, from my perspective, a lot of us who are neurodivergent, growing up, we felt like there's something wrong with us. Like we get told that we're lazy, that we can't do the simplest thing that other kids or other teenagers seem to be able to do very easily. Because I remember when I was a kid, like during the teacher-parent meeting, like when I was in my first grade, like the teacher told my mom, and my mom later told me, obviously, that I would just be like looking out of the window for like during class and just like kind of zooming out. And I would also like make really silly mistakes in exams. So like I would get the really difficult questions right, but I would like make mistakes in like the easiest question, maybe the first or the second question, normally in an exam, those are the easiest. And so I think for me, getting diagnosed is definitely a way of me knowing that, I am not just lazy or whatever sort of negative attributes I have. I'm simply neurodivergent, and there are strengths within sort of being neurodivergent, and there are also challenges. I think it's really a double-edged sword. And from my perspective, I think a lot of the strength come from like my ability to sort of be really creative and innovative. For example, I feel like I'm able to like think outside of the box and be sort of divergent when it comes to the way I think and the way I sort of create things. And I think that's something that is quite common amongst people who are neurodivergent. And I think at the same time, I am also able to sort of like really from a sort of autism perspective as well. I think I have some interests and like that are really unique, and I can focus on them for a long time. If like sort of we call them like hyper focus. So obviously people with ADHD, we have issues with or like difficulties regulating our attentions. But when we find something that is super interesting and that we're passionate about, we're really able to sit for a long time and really try to learn and understand an area. And I think that's definitely a strength as well. So yeah, because a lot of people think people with ADHD, for example, cannot focus at all, and that's not the case. It's more like we have a dysregulation around our attention. So it's kind of either hyper focusing or just being distracted all the time. So it's like two extremes. So I think once we are able to leverage our ability to hyper focus, it can be a quote unquote superpower as well.
Excellent. So just one thing that we could give people as a tool, if you have any tools that helped you move from a lack of focus into this super focus move, is there any way, or what is your strategy to deal with your brain being on its own?
Yeah, definitely. I think there are, I would say, three things that are super important. I think the first one is really just do things that you enjoy. Find your interest, find your passion. And because that's like being sort of disciplined or sort of trying to kind of like discipline yourself is very difficult. Like willpower is extremely taxing and extremely exhausting. But I think if you have the innate sort of motivation, your interest, and your genuine passion to do something, that is where things get so much easy. It's so much easier. I think so. Find the things you love and do those things, and try to minimize sort of, obviously there are still things that you have to do, and I'll talk about it later, like chores or tasks that you don't really enjoy doing that you still have to do. But I think finding finding sort of interest in things, finding the sort of the positive side of things, and developing this like passion for things. I think that's super. That makes life just so much easier. So yeah, and I think that's number one. Number two, I think is definitely, give yourself deadlines and incentives. Because a lot of the time I find myself just, if there's a deadline, I will do it sort of just before the deadline. And if there's no deadline, it's never gonna happen. For example, the reason why I haven't got an autism diagnosis is because I got sent the forms, and there are like a lot of forms to fill out, and I still haven't filled them out, and it's been a long time, like half a year maybe, that I still haven't filled them out because there's no deadline. And I'm just here like, I'll be like, yeah, I'll do it next weekend, but there's no deadline for it. So, and it's kind of, yeah, so definitely find like, give yourself a deadline, or tell other people, make other people hold you accountable for it. Yeah, and I think that really helps, because like I remember, especially when I was at uni, I would do my essays or like any assignments last minute, and I wouldn't, like, even if I had no time, I wouldn't extend it, because like, or have a sort of extension, because I knew that it would just be, I'll be doing it at the next, just before the next deadline. So I think having deadlines and definitely make you get things done, and having like, have other people hold you accountable for it, and like sort of you can develop incentives for yourself as well. Maybe like if I do this, I will I don't know, but it will be like positive incentives, hopefully. Maybe like I will sort of allow myself to, I would like sort of maybe give myself a spa experience, for example. This is very random. I've actually never done this, but like just an example. And yeah, depending on sort of what you see as like is incentivizing and motivating. And so that's number two. And I think number three, what I think is really important is having structure in your life. Because for people, especially with ADHD, for me, my life, like my brain is already incredibly chaotic. There's just 1,000 things, 1,000 ideas happening at the same time in my brain all the time. And so trying to find structure, trying to keep things in order is incredibly important. And a lot of the time we would need sort of, a processes or like external tools that we can use to help us with managing and organizing our lives. And for me, again, this is not sponsored, just to say, but they really should be paying me to be an ambassador or something. But I love Notion. I think I started to use Notion, I think about 2-3 years ago, and it has been life-changing. Like my entire life is stored in Notion, and I use it to like track the tasks I need to do. I use it to like manage, like I have a reading list on there, so for book I'm reading, or like TV shows, or like I'm watching, and I also track like my exercise on there. I track sort of like my travels on there, like my travel plans, and any sort of notes, any like so I'm also on a lot of like trustee boards. I put like my trustee board like notes, meeting notes on there as well. yeah, everything, like my entire life is on there. And I think it's really, really a great way to keep myself organized, and so that I don't forget things I need to do, or don't sort of miss anything, or don't feel like I'm overwhelmed by the wealth of tasks that I need to do as an adult, because adulting is incredibly difficult. So yeah, we need to make it as easy as possible. Try to offload all the information that you keep in your brain onto like a platform like this. I think really helps me with managing my life.
I think also you tacked on a very important thing, holding yourself accountable. What I found also works is building momentum and starting small, because if you just get overwhelmed with these huge tasks like filling in the forms to define whether you're neurodivergent or not, and you will never know because now you've got it in the perpetuity. If you start with a small task, and as you said, having an incentive at the end of the task, I'm gonna splurge myself with going to spa, and that really is an enhancer to feel good about yourself, because you finished the task and now you deserve that award. And
Yeah.
that's really powerful brain strategy. We've got another great supporter in Trisa Tesu Satish. I hope I say it well. That's a nice one, Nina. She just commented
Hi, Trisha.
on your great tips. Now, I really love this conversation, although we have to be mindful of the fact that it's such a broad topic. But we want to make sure that also companies welcome diverse talent. Tell me, how did you did you mention the fact that you're neurodivergent during your interview stage?
Yes, definitely. I definitely, like, I feel like I want to. I know a lot of people. First of all, I know a lot of people feel like, oh, maybe I shouldn't mention that, or maybe they're gonna think negatively of me. But I think for me, I'm always incredibly honest during my interviews, because I don't want to join a company where I can't be myself. I like, whilst when you're doing like recruiting for jobs and stuff, it's not just about like, the company choosing you, it's about you choosing the company as well. So I want to work, I want to and only want to work in a space where I'm appreciated for who I am, and I don't have to pretend, and I don't have to, try to be somebody else. I don't have to try to fit in. I think for me that's incredibly important. So because I think especially for us people who are neurodivergent, it's so exhausting to try to have to mask all the time, to try to pretend to be like normal or neurotypical all the time. It's so exhausting, and I definitely feel like I'm not my best self when I do that. So I'm always super honest. So for my current job, for example, when I was going to the recruitment process, I told my recruiter that when I got asked whether if there's something that perhaps they need to know about the recruitment process, and I said that I have ADHD. But when they asked me if I would need any accommodation, I said no, not really, because I think from my perspective, I don't feel like I need any particular sort of accommodation. But I would still like them to know the fact, just to be open and honest about who I am, because it is an authentic part of me, and I don't want to have to hide it.
Absolutely. It's good to be yourself, and because everybody else is taken. Anyway,
Yes.
we've got a great question from Olga Vasina. You mentioned the fact that in China, psychology is kind of not really a huge thing. Has anything changed in this respect? And then we'll go into question from Olga.
Yeah, definitely. I think things has definitely been going in the right direction, and yeah, it's definitely getting better. And I think this is a phenomenon across the world. I think in a lot of areas, people are becoming more and more aware of mental health issues, and and people start to see these things as serious. People start to treat mental health as important as physical health, and I think it's such a positive trend that we're seeing. And I think I think there's still stigmas. For example, I think a lot of the time in China, especially, if you tell people that you're seeing a therapist, people will like gasp. People will be like, "Oh, like, are you okay?" But then, in reality, everybody should be seeing a therapist. Like everybody should be, taking care of their mental health proactively, not just reactively. No, you shouldn't only sort of be like, okay, I need to do something about it when you're like really depressed or really having a really sort of bad anxiety or having a mental breakdown. I think mental health is something that we need to take care of proactively. And I think it's definitely becoming more and more accepted. My mom is retired now, but I think like maybe a year, like she's kind of retired, like half retired. But like when she was like maybe 2-3 years ago, I started to hear her talk about, her company were like inviting psychologists to like come and do talks with her and her colleagues, etc. And I think that's something like super positive. And it's definitely the first time I've heard those things, like only like recently in the past couple of years from my mom, that it's been happening. But I'm really happy that it's starting. So yeah.
So your mom is getting retired, but she's working in China still, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Fantastic. Well, so let's dive into Olga Vasina's question because it's a positive change. And as you said, it's a global change, not just in China, that people start talking about the mental health and our brain functioning and or maybe not quite functioning, which may be the case. I think it's the positive of the pandemic and the lockdown that comes out of this rat race. So Olga says, hi Nina, how do attitudes to neurodiversity in tech differ between China and the UK, Europe, in your experience?
That's actually a really difficult question to answer. And I honestly don't think I have the experience and the knowledge to do that, because I've never worked in China, not in any jobs, not in tech. I never lived as an adult in China actually. So if you're talking about like from an industry perspective, like in tech, if I were to say something, it wouldn't be based. It wouldn't be sort of evidence based. Yeah.
So let me slightly change that. Is the neurodiversity in tech any different to neurodiversity in, let's say, a big corporation like the one you used to work for?
So you mean like between tech companies and other corporations?
Yes. Do they have different solutions, or do they treat people differently who are defined as neurodivergent? Or is it just something not in their policy? They have no time for that. So I was just asking because you've been working for, let's call it Microsoft, which is, as we know, is working on their policies. So I was wondering whether there is a different cultural approach to people with neurodiversity in tech company versus in other company.
I definitely think tech companies are in particularly accommodating and proactively sort of educating and promoting neurodiversity within the workplace. There are a lot of tech companies that have like recruitment programs, for example, that are specifically targeted at the neurodivergent population, because they recognize sort of the fact that a lot of neurodivergent people perhaps are not necessarily the recruitment process or like the interview process is not necessarily friendly to some of the neurodivergent population, and so they're trying to devise a way for people who are neurodivergent to still showcase their capabilities and their skills in alternative ways. I know there are like a couple of programs, whether if it's, at Microsoft, my previous employer, or Google, or like IBM, etc. So definitely, if you're interested in sort of going to one of these big tech companies, definitely check out. They have sort of their programs and resources on neurodivergent recruitment. And I think secondly as well, once you're in the firm, I would say like at Microsoft at least, I think first of all, a lot of like, I think the percentage of the rate of neurodivergence is higher in like say engineers actually compared to the general population. So I think that's why it's particularly important for tech companies to get it right. And so once you're in the firm as well, for me there were a lot of support. For example, there's this company, again, not sponsored, called Genius Within, that is used by a lot of corporates to help their employees, with their neurodivergent conditions, whether if it's from assessment perspective or ongoing support perspective, like moderating perspective. It's for me, it was really, really helpful. I think I was really lucky. What happened to me was when I joined, I think that was when I just got my diagnosis. So I was kind of sort of talking to people about it. And I think I told one of my colleagues about it. And then she introduced me to a couple of other people in the at Microsoft who were also neurodivergent. And they shared their experience with me from like sort of the support that the company offered, and to sort of their personal tips and advice as to how to manage this. And I think that was really positive to see, because I can see that not just me, but there are other people who are embracing their neurodivergence in the workplace, and that made me feel like there's a community that we're supporting one another, and that we can be ourselves and bring our authentic selves to the workplace. So yeah.
So are there any, or is there any more advice from Nina? Because you've gone through some interviews, you've been through various teams, and I'm wondering, is there any key takeaway that company could take on board to improve their processes, to really cater to those who are, underdogs in the company?
Yeah, definitely. I think the most important thing is to, during the recruitment process, is to first of all, make people feel comfortable that they can share their neurodivergent conditions. And secondly, ask people whether if they need any accommodation, because I think it's called neurodiversity for a reason, right? Like it's really diverse. Everybody have different, it manifests differently in different individuals. So I think it's incredibly important to understand the needs of different individuals, and by sort of asking them what type of accommodation they need, if they need any at all, and so that they can best showcase their skills and who they are as individuals. And so yeah, I think just having this more flexible approach instead of this one-size-fits-all approach to recruitment is really important, because that's the only way we can get diverse, recruit diverse people.
But why do different brains matter?
Yeah, I think because I think diversity, whether if it's neurodiversity or other types of diversity, is important because we bring different perspectives to the team. Most of the jobs that we do, we work in a team. We're not like an isolated individual. And even as engineers, we work in teams. And sort of so having the ability to bring different perspectives and different experiences is incredibly important. And for neurodivergent people, we think differently. We process information differently. So we sometimes we're able to notice things that maybe other people have missed, or we can come up with solutions or innovative ideas maybe other people wouldn't have been able to come up with. So I think having a diverse team, neurodivergent perspective, and also other diversity dimensions, it's able to have a more productive and more functional and just more like well-rounded and team that deliver better results and perform better.
Well, because after all, if you nurture the garden, which is your team, you're going to have much better results than if you just look after one flower in your garden, whether it's Nina or whether it's, I don't know, John or whoever that might be, because that was another topic of our discussion, Nina. I'm not going to delve deeper into that. However, is there a difference between approaching people, females who are neurodivergent versus males? Did you experience anything like that?
Yeah, definitely. So when people look at the neurodivergent sort of population, you'll see that there are a lot more men than women, a lot more like boys than girls when people were young. And so this makes a lot of people think perhaps that men or boys are more likely to be neurodivergent. And that is simply not true. It is because it is often there is a overdiagnosis of boys, especially when people are younger, to be neurodivergent, and there's an underdiagnosis for girls and women to be neurodivergent. It is because like women and girls tend to be better at masking their conditions, whether if it's by altering their behavioral or like sort of observing how other people behave and try to act normal. And I definitely feel like I was doing that as a kid. And I was able to sort of, I guess, survive my childhood and teenagehood. But I have to say, like, there were definitely a lot of cases that I messed up, or I messed up with my masking, or like, and it's very exhausting because you're constantly having to sort of second guess and having to overthink. Oh, am I being weird? Is this normal? Or like other people are doing this and I'm doing this. Is this like good? Like just for example, one thing that I always have this like not like argument, but I think with my mom is a lot of the time I would like keep fidgeting as I'm doing now. Because I think, Beata, you asked me like if I was nervous to start. I think it's because I keep like just moving my chair or something. But I do that all the time, and I would be like keep playing with my headphones as well. And I think sometimes I would like shake my leg as well. Yeah, my mom was just like, "Why would you do that? That's so like not appropriate and whatever." But it's really hard to sort of stop. I think it's So a lot of these things, I do notice them. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, Nina. And we can barely hear you because you're fidgeting with your microphone now. However, I get you, girl. I'm so happy that you can be yourself, and all these females who are trying to suppress their natural behavior. There is a message to you: be yourself, because it is going to be liberating the moment you start not worry about what other people think of you. This is the most liberating moment. And also change, feel free to not really overanalyze what happened in the past, because we can't change it. We can only change our behavior in the future. So that's another message that I would like our listeners to live with. However, as we are heading towards the end of the show, Nina, I have a set of questions that we always like to ask, and let's start at random. So since we are speaking about being in hot water and sometimes feeling under a lot of pressure, Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "Women are like tea bags. We don't know our true strength until we are put in hot water." So in life, how are you in hot water? How are you brewing, Nina?
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I definitely work well under pressure. Not too much pressure, not like sort of overwhelming pressure, but I think with a certain amount of pressure, I definitely work better because, like I said before, I need the deadline. I need the sort of the almost like external sort of motivation to kick me and keep me going, and like yeah, so. I think especially now, I work has been really like busy and intense. So yeah, and I think for me, it's actually quite energizing and motivating, and I've been really enjoying it. So yeah, I think I'm doing well in hot water. I don't drink tea, but I think I'm doing well.
My goodness, a lady who comes from China, the word of famous tea, doesn't drink tea. That's quite remarkable. Not even the tea with milk since you're landed in London.
No, I don't have anything with caffeine. Like I run on pure adrenaline. So yeah.
Good for you. Good for you. Now, let's go into the number one book you can sit and think, oh, I wish I read it before I started my career.
Yeah, definitely. So there is this book called Range, How Generalists Triumph in a World of Specialists. I think that's the entire title. It's quite long, but it's called Range, The Range, and it's recommended to me by somebody I really look up to. So it was the chair of the first charity board that I joined at the time. He was incredibly successful, had a really successful career, also really successful in his personal life as well. And yeah, and he recommended this book to me, and I think it's really a wake-up call for me, because I think at the time I was in an engineering job. I was like, oh, I have to be super specialized. I have to be like, really technical and really learn my my sort of toolkit in this very specific area. But then he recommended me to read this book, and I realized, and it really opened my eyes. I was like, wow, okay. So the goal is not necessarily not for everybody to be a specialist. In fact, generalists can bring so much value into the world, whether if it's in your workplace or in your personal life, etc. So I think for me, it really taught me to to really look at the bigger picture and be more holistic and really drill in a lot of the soft skills and transferable skills, which also motivated me to make the career switch from engineering into consulting, where I feel like I have the opportunity to gain a wider range of skills and have a more diverse experience and become more of a generalist.
Excellent job advice, since you've been already through a couple of great career moves. And now let's imagine that you could meet anyone in the world for a private breakfast. Who would it be, and where would you go to?
Yeah, definitely. I know it probably sounds quite, I think people are probably expecting me to say some like famous person, but it would actually be my granddad, my paternal granddad. I think he's definitely the person that has had the biggest impact on my life, on who I am as a person. Because I grew up with my paternal grandparents actually when I was going to primary school, and I think that was so I spent the formative years of my life with my paternal grandparents, and my granddad definitely had the biggest impact on shaping me. Because basically he came from like a super poor background, and for him to change his life, he fought in the Second World War against sort of the Axis power, and yeah, and that's how he changed his life. And he's such a multidimensional person. Like he's like a generalist. He was like so he has passed away now. He passed away when I was 12, so I was quite young, but still, like everything that the time we spent together, everything that he taught me has like, it's still sort of impacting me as a person to now, like to today. So he had so many hobbies and so many different interests, and he's such a like well-rounded person. And I feel like and all of those things he developed himself. He paved his own path, and I think for me that's incredibly inspiring. to be coming from where he was to where he ended up. I think that he's my biggest motivation in life.
So if you only had one question, one question you could ask your grandpa, what would it be?
I would probably that's such a hard question.
No,
you're
in hot water now.
Yeah, I think I would ask him if he would be proud of me, because he passed away when I was so young, and I think I really think, and I really hope, and I really believe that he would be proud of me to see where I am today, to see how much I've grown, and I think to have his approval, to have his to have his validation, and just
Nina,
believe.
I've got to
so
stop
important.
you here.
Yeah.
I'm speaking from the universe.
Yeah.
Universe is proud of you. I'm proud
Thank
of you. Our community is proud of you. I'm sure Teresa and Dr. Tony are proud of you too, girl, and Olga Vasina as well. Give us some word of appraisal and tell Nina that you are proud of her, because she wants to hear from the universe and from her grandpa that they are proud of her. Anyway, let's go into our final question, which is, can you please give us your life lesson quote and how did it change you?
Yeah, again, this is such a cliche thing to say, but again, this was something I learned when I was doing my A-levels. Actually, I did English literature as one of the 4 sort of A-levels that I did, and we did the play called The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. And one of the quotes from there says, to love oneself is the beginning of a lifelong romance. And I thought, it's so cliche, in some way, but it just stuck with me the whole time through my entire adulthood. I think self-love is so important. I think it's the most important thing in the world. And I think for me, I was actually really depressed for 2 years during the pandemic, and I think the only thing for me at the time is I felt like I couldn't love myself. But then when I came out of the depressive phase, and I realized, the only difference between me being depressed and not depressed is the fact that I love myself unconditionally when I'm not depressed, when I'm a happy Nina. And I think it is such a deciding factor for me. The quality of my life is dependent on how much I love myself. And I think it's a commitment to myself, and that I will love myself, for the rest of my life. And it is a lifelong romance.
Lifelong romance. So is the challenge to our audience love yourself, or do you have any other challenge, bold piece of actionable advice from Nina?
Again, this is incredibly cliche, but be yourself. Like you said, be yourself, because everybody else has already taken. And I think when you're only you're the best sort of you're bringing your best self when you're being true and authentic to who you are. And don't ever, obviously, try to always get better and improve. Self continuous improvement is really important, but don't change in essence who you are. So don't try to be like anybody else. And I think that's my biggest piece of advice.
As Audre Lorde says, it's not our differences that divide us, it is our inability to recognize, accept, and celebrate those differences. Here is my acceptance, celebration, love that goes not just to Nina, to everybody else who listened to today's episodes. And Nina, thank you so much for staying with us and sharing your insights, even if you were fidgety a little bit. And your work is not only transforming the digital landscape, the women in tech movement, but also paving the way for a more sustainable future. We are all living here today feeling inspired and ready to make our own positive impact. with Grandpa's overview and approval or not. And that's it from episode 154 of PhD Livestream. Thanks to our guest, Nina Ma. To stay updated and ensure you never miss a positivity hack delivered, follow Woman on IT and turn on notifications to be alerted once a video has been released. Next week, we're gonna have Giovanna Malaga. And thank you so much to our lovely audience who participated and asked questions. Thank you to Tony, Teresa, Olga Vasina, and in IPO Vit, in Patrick's Opinions, who says, super proud, great show, Nina, great show, Beata, thank you. We approve. If you don't like something, change it. If you can't change it, change your attitude. As Maya Angelou says, today is your day to hack the future, hack the positivity you want. Thank you.